little background on you. Obviously, you well educated and versed in these topics, but give us some background on how you got there.
Yeah, well, one last tie into what we said before, and then we can go to that. Is I would say if you want to, it's the teacher in me, which will lead to my background, which is probably why I'm doing this. Is like I always like to give people homework. So here's homework. Go to your own website and look through it for anything that says what you don't do, and then go over to the sales team and listen to them have a sales call. Do they ever say what you don't do? Okay, that now you have something to go do.
Yeah.
So that's just try that this week. See if you see any of it. And then the last thing is go to any of your competitor sites and see if they say that. And don't go with that like, oh, well, see, we don't have to because they're not. No, that's going to be competitive advantage because you're going to be super clear about what you do and they're not. So as far as where I came from, it's funny because you're just talking about the overall entrepreneurial journey that I've been through. Like, how did I end up? Yeah. Okay. It's weird. I had zero interest in being a business owner, not even on my radar. I had zero interest in running a business. I thought the kids going to like business administration classes at 8 a.m. while I was taking communication classes at 11 were silly. Like what it was as bad as all the kids in chem class. Like, I don't know why chem classes are always at 8 a.m. But they are, right? Like my wife was a science major, right? And all her classes were like at 8. And all of us liberal arts, communication and history majors, we could take night classes if we wanted, right? And so, but what happened was I have a passion for teaching. And so I left my master's degree with a degree in political rhetoric and instructional design. That was kind of the dual emphases of the master's degree, right? It was a degree in communication, but the sub emphases were that. And so I ended up saying, I really want to teach. I wanted to go off and be a college professor, but I was about to get married at the time and I didn't want us to be broke. And so I didn't go after the PhD, but I decided I was going to go train somehow. And so I was like, well, where can I still train? And at the time, this is 1993-ish, there's the revolution of GUI interfaces and people are starting to use Windows for work groups and all that stuff. And they're moving away from DOS. And so there's all these training outfits that are trying to train these masses of corporate users on how to use the software. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm pretty savvy on technology. And so I had a computer in my bedroom and had learned a lot about it. I'll go do this. So that story arc takes me to basically eventually becoming certified in a bunch of like networking technology and databases. And I was training corporations on stuff. And then circa about 1999, there's two other guys I'm working with. And we decided to go split off and make our own company, our first company that we grew and sold. Mm-hmm. And that was a mixture of technology evangelism kind of work and then technical training. And then that led to the start of Cascade, where we were doing a lot of competitive analysis at the end of the second one. And then we built Cascade to be more of a research firm. But the thread I really wanted to get to, which is why I kind of spread through the years so fast, is what I didn't really realize about being a business owner is it's a lot of teaching. It's a ridiculous amount of teaching. If done right, I think it is. It's not, I mean, I'll be honest. I miss the classroom.
Yeah.
And I have had the opportunity to sometimes be an adjunct in an MBA program. And now that my kids are a little more grown, I mean, I'm always doing that. Like skiing's the hobby. I want to go be a host on the hill. Like I can't, I'm probably going to retire to be a tour guide or something, who knows what, but like the point is I came to realize there was a lot of that. And I think it ties into another thing that's really important is that if you're going to lead a business, you really have to think about how often can I take something, and I'm going to paraphrase something from a book David Maister wrote on managing the professional services firm that I think is equally true of any firm. He said the chronic problem in almost any companies is a lack of delegation and real, actual, actionable delegation. And the way you make that work is by actually training your people. But here's the catch. It's not training, it's apprenticeship. And what most owners want to do is they kind of want to rush through the training and stand up the employee and make money off the employee. And what really has to happen has to be a gradual letting go. And sometimes even a rushing back to support them from an apprenticeship standpoint. And I really enjoy that part of it. I do find that it is something that I have to educate people on when they come into the company, because they're so used to other jobs where they come in, they go through a training regimen, and they're left on their own to solve problems. And I always say, no, don't do that. Like if you're stuck, this company is here to help you at any single moment in your evolution. And it's really funny. I have to like unwire almost everybody that comes here in the beginning, because there's a reluctance, I think, once you've been a place for a while, to ask for help. Mm-hmm. And what we have is a culture that's really kind of the polar opposite. You know, we're like, if it's a weird thing to say, but I'll sometimes say, like, if Cascade knows the answer, I don't want you have to figure it out. Right. I want you to go to the rest of Cascade and figure it out. And so in the end, I found a lot of joy from teaching and apprenticeship, even as a business owner. And I'll get the classroom thing going again today. And if anybody knows a adjunct professorship, now that I have more time, feel free to ring me up. I'll probably think about it again. But so that's a little bit of the journey. So a guy who was a teacher ends up owning a business, and after a while realizes there's a lot of teaching in business, and finds a lot of joy out of it.
I think that this latter part of the discussion is the second large nugget in this total interview, because you talk about delegating and teaching your employees. And so often, like you suggested, that's overlooked. It's funny. I just did a little meme on my Instagram a few weeks ago. I'd given I'm on the school board, and I'd given the superintendent Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. I said, hey, this is a wonderful book if you haven't read it. Oh, yeah, I got a copy of that. And I couldn't help but walk away thinking, you probably didn't read it, because if you were even practicing one or two of those things, I wouldn't have given you the book. It's the second time that it's happened to me in my professional career. And both times somebody really needed some of the advice in that book, because it's an easy one. A lot of people know it.
Right.
But, if somebody's giving you the book for the second or third time, you're probably not reading it or digesting it. And I just think that there's such a lack of teaching people and delegating and growing people to succeed. Maybe it's an ego thing. Maybe people don't want them to take their jobs. I'm not really sure what it is. Maybe you can shed some light on that. Why are people so apprehensive to be the teachers in the leadership role?
It's a good question. I've had people ask me it more from like, why are people not willing to be apprenticed? Because that's another piece of it too. But if we take it from the teacher side, I think there's probably a few things in play. I think at one point, a lot of business leaders quit reading things that conflict with what they already know.
Yeah.
And therefore the learning stops. And I think then they become poor teachers. I think some of it is the belief that you have to come up with the agenda. Like a good apprenticeshipy relationship is that that agenda is at best jointly built. And I would almost put it more on the person that you're doing the apprenticeship with, right? They know what they're struggling with. They need to come to you and say, this doesn't make sense. You have to create an environment where that conversation is okay. So I think it's this combination of leadership not making it an environment where it's okay for an employee to say, I truly am befuddled. And here's the thing on that. In a virtual company, which many more companies are becoming virtual, right? We've worked on and off in a virtual way for a number of years, right? Yeah. We're fully virtual now, but I've done the virtual thing for a long time. I think it's probably the biggest productivity killer in the universe right now is the employee who stares at his screen or her screen, doesn't know how to proceed. And because it's a virtual environment, minutes, hours, days, weeks are lost because they don't feel comfortable shooting off a flare that enough people can see that they can help. And all of that is true. Yeah. Like it has to be a big enough flare that everybody can see it. And you have to make the culture okay with that. And some of that is repetitive. So on the teacher side, I think there's a few different things that go into play, but I do think also the point about reading stuff you disagree with is like super important. It's so easy to read a couple seminal business books when you're a young entrepreneur and that's it. And I'm all for perennials. Some books, Good to Great, Meister's book, The E-Myth Revisited. We could probably go through a list of a dozen or so books that you should read 50 years from now too.
Yeah.
But you got to read stuff that that disagrees with you. And you can put it down and be like, I don't want to operationalize any of that. That's fine. But there's something about forcing your brain to stretch over a playing field you disagree with that just makes you a better business owner.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about it, but it's automatic. And again, you don't even have to necessarily take in a lot of ideas that you agree with. It's just that stretching is just super, super good.
Yeah. And there's a good point in there. Sometimes getting something you don't want allows you to know exactly what you do want. So if you're reading a book that you completely disagree with, you say, okay, well, I know that doesn't work for me. This is what I really want. And I can't read enough books right now. And I don't even run a business anymore, because things are evolving, people are changing. And even if it wasn't relevant 50 years ago, it could be relevant now. Or like you said, maybe come back to it in 50 years. But it's great to stretch your mind and just keep that input coming so that you can be the best you can be. And I think leaders oftentimes forget that.
Right. And a little piece of homework there, like that's easy for anybody to do, is when we're recording this is a tough week in America. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
It's been a challenging week. Okay. So depending on whatever you feel about what happened this week, it's been a challenging week, I think, all the way around. And so, when you go read a story, take the time to open up 9 different web browsers for every different media outlet you can think, and take the moment to actually read everything there. I guarantee you'll walk away from that feeling a little different than if you only picked one.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing's true. And I know people don't always have the time for that. I don't always have the time for that. Yeah. But if you've never done it, that's a problem. Yeah. I think.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Well, and actually, I think to further that point is that oftentimes we derive our opinions from that one source without really looking into, like you said, open up 10 different browsers and really do some research on that particular item. And I would guarantee you that people will waste more time defending that one outlet that they read that one thing than they will doing research. Like, wait,
and you see this in business all the time, right? A guy reads one book, or he reads, he knows one thing about the competitor, or he has one way that he believes sales should be done, and it just, that's it. It's like a single note a cappella, right? That just never ends, right? I'm like you. I have I think it's 1,200 Kindle books, and so I think honestly, if we close this with one piece of advice, I would just say go buy a book.
Right.
That's all I tell people to do, and then buy another one, and that would probably make the world a better place at the end of the day.
Yeah, probably right. Sean, before we wrap it up, tell us specifically the name of your company and kind of an overview of what you guys do. I can hear the results in our conversation of what you do, but give us some specifics so people know what they're after.
Yeah. So short version is this. It's Cascade Insights, cascadeinsights.com. We do a ton of market research for clients in B2B technology. So, nothing that's sold in a Best Buy, but if you think of technology like servers and cloud applications and, SaaS software and those kinds of things, that's us. And for those clients, they usually come to us either for pain or opportunity. On the pain side, it's competitive threat. They launched a bad product. They want to understand how to bring it to market better. The competitors out marketing them or outselling them. And opportunity is, they've got a new product they want to see if they can make the most of, or they will have a new market they want to go after. And we'll help them figure out how to take advantage of that opportunity and make more of it. And that's basically what we do.
Yeah. Well, as I've already suggested, there's been at least 3 really big nuggets in this show for people to learn by. If you want to find out more or learn more, Sean just gave you how to reach out to those guys. And this is just great practical advice for people, especially in the environment that we're all conducting business. Like you said, we're basically all virtual now. Let's be the best we can in those environments and really stretch our limits.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, thanks for being on. Thank you for listening to today's show. It is my pleasure and honor to interview all of the guests that have been on the Answer is Yes podcast. If you have enjoyed the show, please go on iTunes and subscribe, give a rating, or simply tell a friend about the show. We also believe in the message of our guests and the positive influence of their stories. As my own mentor and coach, David Meltzer, has taught me, spend some time every day thinking and writing about the things in your own life that you have more than enough of. You will find out how blessed we really are. Please visit my website,